Optimism isn't necessarily dreamy thinking, although I have to say everybody here looks pretty dreamy today. It is about optimizing things. What do we do when we build a carceral system for a river? We attempt to liberate her, right? So we're starting our procession today in front of this temporary concrete straw, which reaches down 50 feet into the ground, so that we can lift that water and liberate it, so that water can do what water wants to do, which is seek the lowest ground and flow there at its own time and its own tempo. So once upon a time, this land we're standing on and the land we today call the LA State Historic Park was a basin where that water would flow. We are remembering, putting back together. Take what's been broken, dismembered, and remember it with our bodies and our intentions. Let's remember the floodplain. Behold the landslides and the controlled burn fires that help bring them to us, and the queen of the fire followers. Long live the pollinators! There's something innately powerful that happens in Southern California here, especially around the LA River, because of the diversity of our population, because biodiversity loves our differences. Things thrive when they come together around biodiversity. So where you're sitting was a tow yard made famous because O.J. Simpson's Bronco was towed here after that infamous car race. It is, from those of us who are old enough to remember Repo Man, where I would get my car out of impoundment when I used to be in the punk rock scene back in the 90s. This is how I knew about this place, right? So the dark underbelly of the city has also been its engine room in art and culture. So what you see here is Metabolic Studio's provocation about how do we turn a tow yard back into the primary floodplain of the pre-carceral river. This is where the wild river would flood. This is where the duff and dander and leaves and trees would find themselves so that food and medicine would grow and the first peoples of this land would come here to eat and drink. So firstly, I'd like to thank Eduardo and Karen and Ovi for our coconuts today. Thank you for nourishing us. Thank you, Luis, for connecting us, and we'll hear from Luis today. And now, with no further ado, I want to introduce Diego Zapata, who will introduce the site a little bit more. Diego worked here with Northeast Trees as a high school student, and I like to say we're in an A-B rhythm in his life. It's like A, he goes to school, B, he comes back to the moon to cultivate it. Then he goes back to school, and then he comes here. And so we're catching him between his master's and his PhD. So we're very happy to have him. And he and And the Farm Lab team will be here on Thursday this week to test your soils. If you're worried about soils, you can bring them here on Thursdays. He'll tell you more about that. But we also wanted to say, this is so beautiful right now. If you want to just come hang out, bring your friends and be in this incredible garden this Thursday and the following Thursday while spring is really coming would be great. So we have 5 lightning conversations for you right now. Each will be 5 to 10 minutes, and they're all from people who are making another city possible.
This is a very, very special place to me. It has incredibly shaped my perspectives on life as an activist, as an organizer, as a scientist. Because to me, it is a place that's dedicated to asking what it means to not only build cities, but to also ask how to gently undo them. Right? So that soil, water, and community can finally reemerge and rebuild those connections that have been lost through infrastructure. The voices you're about to hear today represent different threads of this larger experiment that we call Optimist Day. People who have moved Earth, built community infrastructure, and imagined new pathways connecting the places we are currently at today. So first, I want to introduce our panelists. We're going to hear from Kristen Flores. Kristen, do you want to? Woo! She played a vital role in helping us physically move the soil that makes moving mountains possible. So reminding us that transformation begins with the simple, powerful act of people working together. We're also going to hear from Jeff Perry. He's the founder of Angel City Lumber and who's also been leading a new project called the Altadena Reciprocity Project, an effort to salvage trees destroyed by the Eaton Fire to transform them into locally milled lumber that will be used to rebuild homes in the very Altadena communities they grew up in. His work reminds us that even in devastation, materials and memory carry forward, right? Then we'll hear from Luis Moran, who helped pilot Inclusive Action's catering vendor program, a program strengthened through the collaboration with Lauren Bond and Metabolic Studio's Milpa space, demonstrating how food, land, and economic opportunity can be woven together to create new, novel community partnerships. Where's Luis? Where's Luis? There he is. We'll also hear from O-Lan Jones, who's been working with Lauren to develop an interdependence choir, a collective experiment in sound, storytelling, and community voice. Through singing, listening, and narrative, the choir seeks to weave together the many unseen stories of the LA River and the communities that live alongside it, reminding us that watersheds are not only ecological, but they are cultural and human systems too. Where's O-Lan? There you are. And then finally, to tie us all back into action, Tom Norris from 18th Street Art Center will share an idea that expands the geography of the work here. He's proposing a bike ride connecting all the Meandros sites across the Bayona watershed, inviting us to experience the cyborg watershed of Meandros, not as an extraction on a map, but as a route we can actually gather and travel together. So, each of these presentations speaks to a different form of movement, soil moving, opportunity moving, and people moving across the watershed. With the spirit of movement and possibility, I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Kristen Flores.
The Topanga Canyon landslide of 2024. We were contracted by Caltrans to come out and try to move this massive material as soon as possible while also trying to rebuild the slope side. So we have the spider hoe up there trying to get rid of all the loose material, bring it down back to the road so that we can at least haul it out. We have all this material that we need to haul out like as soon as possible. So we're trying to turn over every rock, try to call anybody that we can think of that would want the dirt or the soil. And we got in touch, luckily, with a farmer out of Camarillo that used the soil. So we're using his lands that he was contracted for from the different farmers to try to get the soil over there to him. And luckily, we got a phone call that actually came to us from Lauren and Kristen. You wanna?
Yeah, so 2024 Topanga Canyon landslide happens. We have an insane amount of dirt to move. and the road needs to open up ASAP. So we're not only tasked with restabilizing the landslide, the hillside, but also moving this soil. And so it was our goal. We were like, this is, and also, just so everyone knows, dirt is dead. The right term is soil. That's what I learned from
so
Kelly.
I corrected myself.
Yeah. So we definitely have spread that. But so we have all this soil we're moving. We were like, this is great soil. We really want to save it from landfill. Like, what are the options? And that's when we found a farmer, and then we received a call from Lauren, who actually walked down the canyon at one point. And we were like, what are you doing here? Because we had all this equipment, and it was, crazy. And I was like, if someone doesn't know you're on the road, they could back up. And, and she was like, oh, okay, I just have, and so it was amazing, because then I gave her my phone number, and then we had another conversation, and it was like, hey, let's try to make this happen. We mentioned it to, the state, and they're like, look, it's about time and how quickly you can make this happen. So figure it out, and then we can have another conversation. So we figured it out. We were like, look, the big question was carbon footprint. You guys, you're going to go from Topanga Canyon to basically, LA traffic. We can't have that carbon footprint. And we were like, okay, then we'll haul at night. And then it was like, okay, well, can you get the haul routes approved? Can you have drivers drive safely? And we basically got it all done between the two of us trying to navigate. And Kelly and Metabolic, everyone was very willing, and we jumped on multiple phone calls. This soil is really special to us because of how much we collaborated with the team. So that happens. We learned that it's possible, right? Caltrans, or the state, sees like, hey, you can partner. Not only did we save the state a lot of money because we saved so much soil from going to a landfill, but we also made purpose and repurposed this material, right, for good use. Thanks. And then 2025 happens, catastrophe hits, Palisades fire, then extreme amount of rain. We get another call. I'll let Greg take it away.
Yeah, so we were already in Topanga dealing with the landslide still, so doing just minor adjustments. Then the fires happened, right? And so it was a question of now, hey, we're a contractor that's already in the canyon. We'll have you guys help to clear out the debris, right? So during that process, we're dealing with all different types of agencies. I mean, state parks, Fish and Wildlife, fire departments, Southern California Edison, Public Works, you name it. I mean, we dealt with all the different agencies. And in the meantime, we're trying to ramp up to try to get rid of this material. The rain happens, like Kristen said. So after the rain, the canyon really showed its true colors as far as the flow lines that just weren't holding up enough of the material that was coming down from these flow lines. I mean, heavy erosion that's on the road, guardrails literally hanging off the cliff. I mean, you name it, things were happening out there that we never knew was going to happen. But with the atmospheric river that California was experiencing, it was just too much material. So we go ahead, we mobilize, we get our plan together. We're still doing like remediation for the road. You can see we're repairing slopes. We got our excavators out there. You want to go to the next slide real quick? Those flow lines that I mentioned, right? You see anywhere debris that's typed like this, where it's glass rock, different boulders. But for those flow lines where there's mass amount of material coming out, between these two pictures, we're maybe like a week from each other. So we had just gotten done with these flow barriers, then the rain came and basically filled it up maybe 4/5 of the way, 2/3 of the way. So I mean, we're going in there trying to do the best that we can to alleviate that much pressure from going onto the road. And then you want to go to the next slide. And then the next, right, is Caltrans had gone with the Topanga Canyon community to come up with a plan that, obviously would eliminate this erosion from happening, continuing to happen in these areas with heavy flow lines. And they went ahead and designed a soldier pile wall with a shotcrete wall that had sculpting on it. And I mean, the contractor that we have out there that's helping us do the shotcrete, I mean, the guy goes everywhere. He goes to Italy, he goes to Spain, wherever you name it.
It's pretty beautiful, right?
Yeah,
it's a very nice one.
It pretty much mimics the rest of the canyon. And that's what we wanted to hone in on, like with the community, because they had such a big voice with Caltrans and trying to design this, that we were fine to work with every different type of agency to get the job done. And we wanted to make it look as natural as possible, right? Because it was just an eyesore if it was anything different. So we're glad we made it happen. You want to go to the next slide? So what has worked, right, in the spirit of collaboration, right, for this day of trying to just make sure that we step the right foot forward with all the different agencies, communities, anybody that we can speak to as far as making these things happen, and moving that step forward and taking that extra step to make it really known that, hey, we're a contracting company. Because to be honest, contracting companies, there's a lot of egos involved, but nonetheless, we wanted to make it known that we're willing to work with whoever comes our way. And I feel like in the spirit of collaboration, it just makes the machine move even smoother, right? It's just like the oil that just keeps on giving back to just keep it moving and keep it going. So we really wanted to make sure that we establish that, hey, we're willing to negotiate, we're willing to collaborate, whatever that we can do to make this possible and make it most, optimize the most out of what's happening. We'd like to do that. And, you know, if we could save a few dollars, good. But if we could give back to the community, even better. So.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, you know, it's contracting is extremely, there's a hierarchy, right? You have to trace where the money usually comes from. And so once you find that, there's many different layers in between. But what's important is that you hire the right people, right? People who want to do the right things, right? Who take the time to listen. There's definitely contractors out there. You know, we appreciate very larger companies who come in with the right big infrastructure and who can help out in a time of need. But it's also, it was like we were meant to be in that canyon because of how much not only one, like we love the canyon, but also our phones ring at all times of the night. And so to have a company where you can immediately call the decision maker and that person can answer, because it's a trickle down effect. Like our guys know, like you do not cut a limb, you do not cut a tree, you do not do anything, touch the environment unless we are involved, or our superintendent, foreman. We have great community activists in the area who sometimes we're like, hey, I don't know if anyone knows of Rosie, but she's an amazing activist in the canyon. But we're like, Rosie's going to do a drive-by, and you guys better be on point. Like, everyone needs to be doing the right thing. And so those types of conversations, that's what's really important when we're building a new city. That's what impacts and trickles down, right? Just much more, you know, the more you create, the better it is. But I think our last slide is just like, if there's one thing to take away from this presentation, it's that better infrastructure is possible. Severe emergencies that happen, such as the Topanga Canyon landslide and essentially the Topanga Canyon road essentially sinking and the integrity of the road becoming impaired due to the fire and debris. There's ways to prevent that, right? So if anyone is involved in organizations or communities or see something, hey, water's accumulating, we have something shifting, the foundation's losing integrity, don't be afraid to make a phone call, ask someone, get the right people out there, because that's how we can make this better, right? If we prevent. And with that, just want to say thank you to Metabolic once again and all of you.
That they didn't say. When we first started talking about this, Kristen and her family also said they grew up on the east side of LA, and they were very aware that there was not enough access to public space that had clean soil. And so they were incredibly moved that not only were we able to get, we were told that they could haul the soil here if we had a place for it by Friday. That was on Monday.
Yeah.
And so not only were we able to bring it here, but I want to call out the LA State Historic Park, because they also were able to open part of their park that was closed as a laydown yard, which is why we will be able to release the LA River and liberate it onto primary soil from the forest. And that is biomimicry, right? Because the soil would normally go to the basins carried by water, but they provided the flow that water is not able to provide. So, flow engineers, how much code did you do that? And contractors operate with their heart too. Like, they were moved to do something, not just because it made economic sense, which it did, but because the heart, which is the biggest organ that pumps water around our bodies, was operating in their decision making. So bring on that leadership.
Hi, everybody. Hello. I just briefly want to start off by saying every time I come to Metabolic Studio, you want to talk about heart. My heart just, I feel so inspired every time I come here. And I really feel like you guys are family, just by the way you operate and what you're putting out in the world. So without getting too verklempt, I just wanted to say thank you very much. A lot of like-minded people here, obviously. And Angel City Lumber is a company that started about 10 years ago. I'm going to briefly tell you about that, and then we'll get into how we're working in Altadena. So Angel City Lumber is a sawmill in Boyle Heights, down the street. Most people are like, there's a sawmill in Boyle Heights? And there is. There is a sawmill in Boyle Heights. We recover tree logs that have fallen in Los Angeles County. We take them back to our facility in Boyle Heights, and we mill them into lumber. It could be species that you're like, you can make lumber from a Canary Island pine. Yes, you can. You can make lumber from, any of these trees within the eye shot of the LA landscape. Yes, you can. In fact, most of the trees that have made their way here through city planning have come here because they're easy to maintain and they're robust. But they're easy to maintain and they're robust because, evolutionarily speaking, civilizations have built themselves upon these species. So just because they're not on the commercial market in the West doesn't mean that they don't have a lot of use, right? So we do what we do to honor our Los Angeles trees. That is the whole point. We think it is really heartless to just part with these living organisms in such an unceremonious way when they die, okay? So our whole point is to mill this lumber and to tell the story of each individual and collective tree and forest in LA County, okay? Cool. So we started in 2015. 2025 rolls around. Post Eaton and Palisades fire, we, like everyone else in our community, were figuring out how can we help? How can we pitch in? But we also were like, well, we want to be optimizing. We want to be effective. So how do we best do what we already do? What do? We make wood. Okay. Where do we go from there? And what that spun into was Altadena was always a community since we started that people were so enamored with their trees. Since we started in 2015, people in Altadena would say, hey, my tree's coming down, or my tree died and I don't want to just mulch it. Can you guys help us out, right? Can we either donate the tree? Can we take the yield from our tree that we bought this house because of this tree and now it's gone, right? So because of that relationship and that rapport we had with that community, we were devastated when, after the fire, people from Altadena were calling us, often in tears, saying, they're going to take my trees. I don't even know if they're dead yet, but they're going to come and take them. And it's protocol, and Army Corps has to get in there. They're contracted with FEMA. We got to figure this out. Can you help us out? We're like, okay, well, I guess if we're going to figure something out, it's going to be how are we going to recover most of the logs in Altadena. So what we ended up doing was we called the Army Corps of Engineers. We called their subcontractors who were working out of a temporary debris site in the golf course at Altadena, the Altadena Country Club. We said, what the hell are you guys doing with all these logs? We went over there, it was just mountains of logs. And they said, you have no idea. And to what Flow Engineers was talking about, if you can solve problems for people, Army Corps and their subcontractors were like, I don't know, we have two massive tub grinders and we're trying to mulch as much as we can and they're breaking down, we're screwed. So we said, stop mulching the logs. We'll take them. And they're like, who are you guys? You know, and we're like, we're a sawmill. They're like, where? I'm like, don't worry about it. Just stop grinding the logs. Took us 3 months. I said, if we find a spot in Altadena, would that help as like a a relief site? They said, yeah, absolutely. They said, right now we're mulching all of these trees. We're putting them in these trailers. We're taking them down to the port. What are you doing at the port? I don't know. That's up to the subcontractors, you know, like one of these. I'm like, okay. So if we had a site in Altadena, could we just put those logs there? They were like, yeah, that'd be great. It took me 3 months of working with the county and all the different county organizations. Finally, Anish Soraya with LA County was like, look, I got an idea. He sent me the information of the Las Flores Canyon Water Company, which is basically at Loma Alta and Lake, where those two streets meet, right by the Cobb Estates. And they said, hey, we're completely obliterated. Our infrastructure's gone. We're hobbling along at 25% capacity. If you want to store logs here and pay us a little lease, like, we would love that. I'm like, great, say no more, we'll do it. We called them up. We started telling the Army Corps, bring all the logs here now. We got about 1,000 logs from Altadena. And simultaneously, we also work with the abutting Angeles National Forest through the U.S. Forest Service. We have a timber sale contract with them, removing beetle kill fuels out of the forest and to here for milling. So we donated 500 more logs from the Angeles toward this project too, so that's 1,500 logs. And what we're going to be doing over the next 2 years, we just got a temporary use permit to mill at the site where the logs are on Lake and Alta Loma at the Las Flores Canyon Water Company. We're going to mill all of those 1,500 logs into appearance grade or finished grade lumber for Altadenans that are rebuilding their homes. It's going to be, yep. It's going to be approximately anywhere between 500 to 1,200 homes worth of appearance grade lumber. Let me explain that a little bit so it has some teeth. So you're like, what is he talking about? Appearance grade lumber is millwork typically. So it's door casings, flooring, trim, millwork, anything like that. Okay, that's appearance grade. It's not structural timber. It's not the studs and the 2x4s and that stuff. I didn't want to go there because I thought I was going to hold up the county. So I was like, no, we're just doing millwork lumber. So we're basically, and also what we're going to be doing, we're basically making 2 size boards. That's it. All of that lumber is going to be cut into 2 different sizes. One is 2-inch by 9, and one is 1.5 by 13. Why so few options? Because we want to keep costs down. And the way we did that is we're creating a production line, a portable production line up there, which is possible because we have a nonprofit called Angel City Reciprocity. That is our first flagship project, this project, which is Altadena Reciprocity Project. So, and Lauren, thank God, is on our board and is just an incredible teammate. So I'm going to wrap it up here, rounding third, by just to point out a little more about it. So essentially, because we're keeping those costs down, we're going to be able to sell the lumber at 40%, 35 to 40% lower cost than it would be on the commercial market. So if you were to buy, millwork grade European white oak, you're probably looking at around $770 to about $1050 a board foot. We're going to be selling the lumber for $550 a board foot. So it's going to save money also. And then the last thing I'll say about it is the whole purpose, and I know I don't really need to, I know you guys all get it, but the whole reason for doing this is most people feel, at least from everyone I talk to in Altadena, and everything, the emotional taxing year that they've had. One of the things that comes back in the wood lens or the tree lens for me is people saying, we're not going to have those trees anymore. Our canopy was everything here. People really cared about those trees, right? And they're also really worried that the Altadena that's coming is going to be different than the Altadena that was. And so this was a way for us to say, this is a bridge. This is a bridge to make sure that we're not forgetting the Altadena that was, because in your home, visibly, the cosmetic wood, the wood that you can see, is going to be the reminder of the Altadena that was. So that's how we're moving forward, and I appreciate you guys having us talk.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Luis Moran. I am with Inclusive Action for the city. For those who haven't heard, oh, thank you. I'm one of the senior technical assistant associates currently there. I currently run our Hire a Vendor program. You saw an example of one of our vendors in action. Thank you. Get in. If anyone's interested in hiring her, please feel free to let me know. But we train our local vendors and food entrepreneurs on how to take on these catering opportunities, right? And at Inclusive Action for the city, our main mission is to invest in our marginalized communities through economic investment and through opportunity and advocacy. It's an honor to be here today, especially here at Metabolic Studios, to reflect on what it means to build community during difficult times, right? More specifically, though, I want to tailor the conversation on food. But not just food as something that we just eat, right? I want to talk about food as culture, food as memory, and to an extent, food as survival. Food is one of the most powerful ways that we can uplift our communities, especially in times of fear, uncertainty, and instability. For so many families and entrepreneurs we work with, food isn't just a product. So think about your local fruit vendor, right? You might think that the fruit, it's just a fruit cup, it's just a product. But to the vendor, that's how they pay their bills. That's how they pay the rent. That's how they feed their kids, right? And to an extent, it's a brand. It's their identity. It's not just I sell fruit. I'm a fruit business owner. That's what I am, right? Last year, through our partnership with Metabolic Studios, we activated La Milpa space, which I believe you all were a part of and saw. In activating local vendors and buying them out during a time where currently we still have it, right? The ICE raids, the instability of being able to go out and vend, right? Being scared that you might not make it back home, right? If you go out to vend. The partnership reminded us that support has to be tangible during these times. I don't think it's enough to say that we care about community. Obviously we care, right? But can we create spaces that truly support that? Spaces that put money into people's hands and spaces that create connection. This is actually what made last year's and this year's partnership with Metabolic Studio so meaningful. Together, we were able to create opportunities for local vendors to show up, to share their food, represent their traditions, and earn income in a safe space. And the impact was real. These aren't just numbers, right? Through this work, we have generated over $125,000 in vendor income directly into their pockets, right? We have supported, through the support, we have actually supported over 25 vendors and families. And we have facilitated over 200 buyouts, which is insane when I look at it. And what's very interesting about this is that these opportunities extended way beyond just one vendor, right? There was times where I would come to the Milpa and I would see one of the vendors hiring another vendor, right? So it was really cool to see that there's this economic ripple effect, right? Where when you hire one vendor, you're not just hiring one vendor, you're hiring a family and you could potentially hire another worker, right? What starts as one opportunity does not stop with just one person. It creates a ripple effect. It means that the income stretches further, that the skills are shared, and that confidence grows. To me, this is the most beautiful thing about the work that I do. When we support vendors, we support families, we support economic development, and we support people who have built something with their hands, their recipes, their labor, and their love. And in a city like Los Angeles, where there's so much culture in every corner, there's this sense of culture that lives through street vending, that lives through pop-ups, that lives through a food truck, right? At Inclusive Action, this is believed to our central work. We believe that local entrepreneurs, including street vendors, food makers, and other small businesses that have been historically excluded, deserve more than just admiration. They deserve investment. This belief has shaped so much of the work, including one of the programs that I currently lead and am really proud of, which is our Hire a Vendor program. We know that there are incredible food entrepreneurs in our communities, people with amazing products, such as the Cocos, right? But sometimes they don't have access to these opportunities, right? Whether it's the language barrier, whether it's a digital barrier, whether it's the fact that they don't know how to take Square payment. There's so many challenges that these vendors have to face in order to have equal opportunity. So I asked myself, what would it look like to change that? What would it look like to not only train vendors, but connect them to real paid opportunities? What would it look like to prepare people for opportunity and make sure that opportunity actually reaches them? And that's what Hire a Vendor does. Through this work, we provide the training, business support, cohort-based learning, and real connections to paid opportunities. We help vendors strengthen their menus, create a brand, further their catering operations, and become ready to actually take these gigs. To date, Hire a Vendor has supported more than 45 vendors and food entrepreneurs, has connected them to over 500 paid opportunities, and to date has earned over $400,000 in vendor income. I think this is very evident what happens when community support becomes more concrete, right? Opportunity matters most when it's accessible. Support matters most when it's tangible. I see it in a vendor who gets one opportunity, like Keren. She started from one opportunity, and now she's doing many more. I don't even think I facilitated this event, right? I don't even think I was part of it, which is amazing for me because that's what we aim for, self-sufficiency. I don't want a handhold, right? The fact that Keren is able to do this by herself, to me, that speaks wonders, right? So I want to close with a simple call to action. If you're an organizer here, hire a local vendor. If you're part of an institution, think about how your budgets, your events, your resources are moving directly into the hands of community. If you're a funder or a partner, invest not only in programs, but in paid opportunities that create immediate and lasting income. And if you're a community member like all of us, show up, advocate, and support the entrepreneurs and small businesses that keep our neighborhoods alive. As we look ahead to the next Optimist Day next year, I hope we can imagine even further though. More vendor activations, more safe and welcoming community spaces, and more partnerships rooted in trust. Because when we invest in vendors, we're preserving culture, we're creating jobs, we're strengthening families, and we're building the kind of future our communities deserve. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you all for playing along and playing music. And there were some beautiful times during all of our singing together. I've been part of the Metabolic team since 2015. And I was pondering last night the question of optimism and how another city is possible. And I got in touch with my sense of the metabolism, the very complex metabolism of this living system, Metabolic Studio, and just how there are long-term goals and short-term goals. And my particular place in music, sometimes I've got people who are there for, like, they've just walked in and it's like, make a melody out of this. And, you know, and you're good with the bass line and you're good with the harmony, and it finding its own ecology that way. And then other times, like this time last year, that 90% of the studio was involved in singing with the Interdependence Choir. Lauren and I are making this enormous operatic-like vision of the inner poetics of the construction, the massive visionary construction project of bending the river.
So what we're doing is called Bending the River, a rite, R-I-T-E. We had some movement exercises, and there's something about multi-hyphenate is like too fragmented, but all of the people with their different expertise willing to jump in and, yes, I shall be the monument to destruction now. And so it's this feeling of the whole of people coming together. And so I feel it sort of like a microcosm of the macrocosm of the city. And it also ignited one of my favorite ideas, which is the holographic universe. That, you know, like if you have a photograph on a plate of glass and it breaks, it's just pieces. If a hologram, the plate of a holographic plate breaks, each piece has the whole in it. And this rings true to me with a living holographic universe, that my little corner means something to the whole. And that's what I was thinking about in terms of how a new city is possible, that alongside the scientific investigations, the practices, what I've learned when I'm doing the little double lab programs each week where I'm listening and editing the different talks and tours and understanding the depth of the practice and of the science and investigation, that there's also this intimacy of singing together and being together that is part of our corner of the world that I feel can emanate throughout the land. Thank you.
Most recently, the studio has been really exploring how we can think about liberating and unpaving other areas of the city of Los Angeles to really create a cyborg watershed. And this is Lauren and Metabolic Studio's one of our newest initiatives called Meandros, where we are actually working with community partners to incrementally unpave the city of Los Angeles, to bring water back into our water table, to remediate toxic soils, and to build community through that process. And we've been working with a lot of really amazing people, one of them being Tom Norris, who is representing 18th Street Art Center. So I want to give him the stage so that way he can talk about one of the ways he wants to honor and activate the Meandros network.
First, before I begin, I want to make sure to thank Diego and all the people here at Metabolic who are making these things happen on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly, yearly. It's been going on for a while. It's really an honor to be standing here before you at Metabolic Studios, having attended many events. Now being up here on stage, it's nice. It's a good feeling. So thank you. We have a lot. I prepared a lot more slides than we're going to need. So I'll just give you a cue to. So last Friday the 13th in February, we met and spoke about proposals and how we can activate for today. And the theme of another city is possible is something that reverberates within a lot of different communities, but especially the bicycle community. When you're riding your bike on the street and a bus goes by, you think there's got to be a better way than this. Like, it's too much. So that's what kind of sprung forth when we were talking about another city being possible. So rather than presenting on what I've been doing, I mean, it is a little bit with Meandros, but what my presentation is more of a proposal. So we have another Optimist Day in 2026. That'll be November 13th, Friday the 13th in November. And my proposal is that we connect all the Meandros nodes via bicycle. Yeah. So this was a bit of an introductory slide. We don't need to go that. My name is Tom Norris. I'm the residency manager at 18th Street Art Center out in Santa Monica, California. As I said, for the next Optimist Day, I'm proposing that we connect all the currently existing Meandros soil towers together. It's a way for us to imagine the migratory patterns, a way for us to imagine how the city would be different if more of these existed, if more of the concrete was broken up, and also how we all connect together through the LA River floodplain, which is one of the reasons the Meandros soil towers are going in is to, rather than the water being run off on concrete, is to just absorb the water into the soil right there. One of the big takeaways here for me is we hope with our partnering organizations, they can contribute to a work that reimagines and ecological and social environments and supporting the dissemination of all this work and the activation of this work to create big changes through small and collective units of action. So something as simple as a bike ride from point A to B to C to D can do that. Whether we're, talking in front of a soil tower or riding our bikes together as a group, as a community, experiencing the city in a whole new way, it puts this action into process. So the starting point would be the 18th Street Arts Center soil towers. These two soil towers have been in place since February of 2025. And so it's been a really, really great experience for me to get to know the soil that's there, the plants that are coming up, what's good, what's bad, bad's subjective, what's invasive and what's taking nutrients away from the plants that we really want there. This would be the starting point. So a nearby, we'd start early, maybe 10, 11. A nearby entry point is there's a metro stop really nearby, so it's easy to access. 17th, Santa Monica College on the metro, on the Expo line is right there. And if we can go to the next slide. And destination 2 would be Crenshaw Dairy Mart, which is where not the second, but a recent soil tower has just been installed in this past February. So a year after ours were installed, Crenshaw Dairy Mart received theirs. Now I know it sounds wild. It's 12.4 miles away, and we could do it. It's only about an hour ride, and the plan is for it to be an easy pace for all of us to stay together. Yeah. Destination 3 will be the LA Eco Village, in which they just unpaved this month, because it's still March, right? Last week. And I hear they're about to get the soil towers installed within the week. So by next November, they will have plenty of things already growing in the season. But this is where our third stop would be. And from Crenshaw Dairy Mart, it's 10.5 miles or so. A near metro station is the Vermont Beverly station. So over the course of this, 27-mile journey across Los Angeles, people can join for one leg or all of it. You can take it from one stop to the next, and be with us on the ride. We can skip past that. And then the last stop would be from the LA Eco Village coming to Metabolic Studios, where we would come and see one of the original Meandros soil towers over here. And from the Eco Village to here, it's about 5.3 miles. So that's maybe, approximately a half-hour ride. And then the nearby metro station is Chinatown stop. So This is an invitation for community to ride together and connect the city through Meandros. Again, it's approximately 28 miles one way, so we'll be doing, it's not a round trip. We won't end up back at 18th Street, and it's estimated to take 3 to 4 hours. Riders can join for any or all of the legs, and the group will have a sweeper, so that on a group ride, no one's left behind. Riders will need a working bicycle. But the caveat is if you come to 18th Street Art Center, that 17th Street Santa Monica College station has Metro bikes and Metro e-bikes. So, if you don't have a working bike, it's not impossible for you to join. Water, sunscreen, snacks, helmet is optional, but highly recommended, and definitely required if you're under the age of 18. So if you bring any young ones along. I'll have tools and tubes, but for those who are inclined and have the resources and can do that, bring those as well, because not everyone carries extra inner tubes with them if we have a flat along the way.
My organization, the LA Eco Village Institute, gives away free bikes to people in need. So if anyone knows people like that, let them get in touch with us. Just email me, Lois, Lois, at ic.org, or Diego knows how to find us.
At each stop, I'm trying to connect with someone who can be sort of our point person for this bike ride. That person can join us, but what we need is someone at each partner organization to receive us, to have water and snacks ready. And then this is the bigger ask, is to have that next Optimist Day sort of planned out in staggered stages. So as the bike rides come along, when we arrive, there's something going on. Workshop, activity, or even a discussion around the Meandros soil tower itself. Again, I think I said it's going to be an easy-paced, no-drop style ride. We'll stay together, and no rider will be left behind, no matter your skill level. So it's for everybody. And the day ends with the riders here arriving at Metabolic Studios, the site of the original node, Meandros node, for Friday the 13th, Optimist Day 2026. Thank you.
So you heard a lot of us speaking and a lot of amazing presenters, but we know there's a lot of you. And in true optimist fashion, we figure that you probably have some juices flowing and optimistic ideas of your own. So we basically wanted to open this up. If you've got an idea, optimistic idea for another city as possible, come on up here, or you can even stay in your seat and just yell out your optimistic idea of something you're working on or something that came to you while we've been sitting here.
So real quick, I'm not plugging anything. There's nothing for sale. I work as an inventor at a company called Wet Design. We're in Burbank, and we make water fountains that spray water near. So like the Bellagio is ours in Vegas, Dubai Fountains, and we have a couple city blocks of factory. And I'm an inventor there, so I get to use all the facilities for whatever I want to do, and that's what I do by day. And then my background's mostly in aerospace, and so 25 years ago I made a flying motorcycle, and there's pictures of it in the Smithsonian. And after I did it, I started thinking about the expeditions. I made it to explore. Not as an industrialist, but I wanted to make explorations. And so then I got very excited about the idea of the Darien Gap. And you guys were talking about unpaving. So the Pan American Highway runs from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, down to Tierra del Fuego in Argentina. And in between, there's a gap of 60 miles where there's no pavement. And so what I wanted to do was do this expedition of run that whole distance and illustrate that it's not our responsibility to pave over the jungle, it's our responsibility to find a way to live with it. And so I started designing a vehicle that I could drive down the whole Pan American Highway and fly over the Darien Gap. So it took me 10 years, and along the way, I also, you know, this is saying something. So go back 20 years when I first made my flying motorcycle, because I'm an ex-Air Force guy and aerospace guy, and there was unlimited money for making drones even back then. It was really clear that we were building basically guns that you could assassinate people with, but nobody would know who shot it, right? And so now we're seeing that today. But go back 25 years, it was pretty clear. So I didn't want to have anything to do with that. So I wanted to do something on the artistic level that would exceed human endurance, so a way we could explore things and do things, but I didn't want to leave a mess. And so along the way, I wanted to get rid of fuel in flying. That was the biggest challenge, is expensive, but also my position is the future is not about supply and demand, it's about demand and supply, right? If we don't demand poison get sucked out of the earth, nobody will supply it, right? An inventor comes up with new ideas and new technologies. A person that does persuasion works at Coca-Cola and says, hey, we've had the same Coke forever, it's full of fructose, but we got to convince these kids that they want to drink it, right? I'm on the other end of the spectrum. So what I've done is I figured out how to make this vehicle, and it doesn't need fuel, which sounds ridiculous, but the simple synonym is, if you imagine sailboats. Sailboats have been going all over the oceans and the rivers for thousands of years, and then somewhere in the very end of it, they made motorboats. So I flipped the script where people have been using gasoline in airplanes since the beginning. So I figured out a way that you could say, oh, hey, let's make a sailboat version of it. So anyway, so like I said, I'm not selling anything or looking at anything, but I'm just saying that as an artist, I appreciate what you're doing here. And if I have any resources to help out with some of your challenges, I'm happy to jump in.
And what was your name?
I'm Deja Molnar, for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tim Griffin. Are we on? Okay, great. So I'm a volunteer for the 2-Bit Circus Foundation, of which Leah there is the executive director. And I also am part of a smaller nonprofit called Griffin Education, but both nonprofits are all about integrating the arts into science education for the kids of Los Angeles. They do things like engineering labs that go in schools where kids can actually get hands-on experience solving problems, not just reading about how problems get solved, but actually learning to do it. So teaching from engineering, not just teaching about engineering. So I don't want to talk your ear off about it, but I wanted to let you know that tomorrow night, if you're interested, we're going to be doing a live show, mostly music about science and environmental science, and doing more songs about civics lately, because we need more songs about civics right now. It's going to be happening at 8 p.m. tomorrow night at Kulak's Woodshed in North Hollywood. And if you want to show up in person, that's great. There's room for a live audience, but it's also going to be streaming live. So if you just Google Kulak's Woodshed with a K, it's a Russian word. And on their homepage, there's a link that says, watch our live stream. It'll be on from 8 to 9 p.m. tomorrow if you want to hear a little bit more about some fun science songs, and also a little bit more about the 2-Bit Circus Foundation and the work they're doing for the kids of Los Angeles.
I'm Jan Williamson, also with the 18th Street Art Center. I live in Inglewood near the Edward Vincent Park, and there's a place there called the Centinela Springs, which is in the Bayona watershed, and it was capped over in the 20s by do-gooders, I suppose. And I would love to see it unpaved and opened up. It probably was a sacred spring. It used to flow along Centinela Boulevard, if you know Inglewood, by Pan's Restaurant, and then over by the 405 freeway and along the base of the bluffs where the Bayona wetlands are, underneath LMU. And so there's a monument there now. It's just a thing of cement rocks and with a plaque that was placed in the 20s marking it, but it would just be a really cool thing to unpave it. And so I'm hoping that when we do, it's called Centinela Springs in the Edward Vincent Jr. Park in Inglewood. And it's kind of on the way from 18th Street to Crenshaw Dairy Mart. So it could be a little stop, make an offering to the land there, and then go on over there. So that's my idea.
Yeah, there's a really interesting history there with the Bayona wetlands and how all of that land was moved to create the marina. And so there are these really strange sort of elevated areas. And there was a big proposal that was approved actually by the voters, but then the budget was not approved. So there was a big proposal to restore all of that wetland area, which just didn't happen because they just didn't do it. So it's this very strange place that's sort of in this stasis of like post-industrialized wetlands, but it's very alive. There's so much ecology happens there, despite all that. So it's fascinating to live near that and witness it. And I'd love for what is it called, the Mandros, to somehow connect to that as well.
I'm a physician of integrative medicine, Chinese medicine, and acupuncture. And I was so entranced by Not a Cornfield 20 years ago. And so it's very exciting to be part of the Meandros network at the LA Eco Village. I've lived there for about 25 years. And I wanted to invite folks. Tomorrow I'll be co-teaching with my professor and my fellow students about Chumash medicine. And this is something that I've been pursuing as part of my job as an herbalist, to also learn about the herbs that grow around us and really incorporate the knowledge that comes from the Chumash, the Tongva, the Gabrieleno people to live with the land and with the plant allies, because they're so powerful. My friend here has been using one of the liniments that I make with California sagebrush. So tomorrow at 10 o'clock, you can look up at the schoolofselfreliance.com. I'll be teaching with Dr. Jim Adams and Enrique Villaseñor about Chumash medicine. And I'd also like to extend an invitation. It's still forming, but last year, and actually every month since the Altadena fires, I've been involved with a free clinic to help the residents of Altadena recover from this tremendous trauma of losing their homes. And people are still sensitive to fire, they're still sensitive to wind, and that is just part and parcel of what we are going to be living with going forward. Well, it has always been actually part of living in Southern California. So how do we do this? I believe community acupuncture is a really wonderful way for people to heal in groups. It helps regulate our nervous systems. It's safe, it's effective, and we incorporate sound baths, we incorporate tea, we incorporate food and celebration of just being together in a safe place in a garden in Altadena. So that's once a month. But what I'm also proposing, and I did this last year, a gentleman here reminding me about the Darien Gap. I'm also part of Emmanuel Presbyterian Church, which has been hosting, along with EPIC, which is the Echo Park Immigration Center, immigrants from Venezuela over the last 3 years, who've been coming to this country, crossing the Darien Gap by foot in order to find asylum and another possibility for life. And so, this is still a really important aspect of what makes our city great, is that we're home for immigrants. Anyway, it's either May 2nd or May 9th. We'll be having a similar healing event for immigrants and activists who have been on the front line, protecting and speaking up for folks who are in detention. And some of them are getting punked and injured and psychologically distressed by this whole situation. So anyway, I'll put that in the calendar. Yeah. Thank you.
Pasadena 100 is trying to get the city of Pasadena to be 100% carbon free by 2030. to stop global warming, at least in our city. So, but I had an idea for the, whatever that's called. Anyway, meandros. So when I did placemaking studies, I would see the East Coast, they'd have snow on an intersection, and then the cars would drive in a certain way, but there was all this space on the road that wasn't being disturbed by the car tires, and you could see it so plainly because there was snow left over. And so they used those areas to do placemaking activities. You could do the same thing here if you just paint with chalk an area and then watch where the cars disturb the chalk, and then you'd have an area that's never used by the cars, so why is it paved? Just unpave that section. Thank you.
A couple things. One, and I had a meeting recently with the folks who are working to make the Olympics and all that's going on around that as ecologically to the best of their ability. So one thing they're looking for, and they're looking for several things. That one is solar generators and people who have access to that and who want to help with that. And obviously they're looking for things that can stay after the Olympics leave to keep, to work with other things and a couple of other things like that. So if anyone is interested in plugging in, no pun intended, to that, come see me after. I can give the information. And the other thing, and that I share with this amazing community, is tomorrow at Chief Yana Village, there's an opportunity. If any of you haven't been there, the second Saturday of every month, there's a volunteer community day to go to a 12-acre land back that was rematriated a couple summers ago with the help of Lauren and Metabolic and some other folks. And they're making an eco-cultural village and completely regenerating the land with the Gabrielina Shoshone tribe there. So that it goes from like 9 in the morning. There's a sunrise ceremony, but it goes from 9 to 1. So if you're interested in that, I can give you the address too. And folks here know about it. Thank you.
I think, like many of us, feel sometimes pretty alone and sad about what I'm observing in our environment. And so an idea came up actually a year ago, and then Metabolic Studio helped me execute that idea, which was to create pieces of garments and to trade those pieces of garments for acts of environmental or community stewardships. And so I created some designs together as a project together with my daughter. So we both created a number of designs that we started printing on secondhand garments. And Metabolic Studio helped us do that with their amazing print studio. So I've been very busy every month I show up with like 20 t-shirts. So we've been printing a bunch of stuff. We've made scenes that go along with it. And the title of our project is Be Like Water, because water kind of finds the places that are in between. Because there seems to be so much blockage right now in terms of like, where can we even go with these ideas? But I think there's always a way, and water will find that way. So we made a little scene with suggestions of how people can, if people come to us at like a farmer's market at different places where we are giving these away, they can take a scene with them, they can pick a piece of garment, and they promise that they will do some act of civic engagement in return. We are not tracking what anybody does, and we feel like we already win just by the fact that people are carrying our designs, our messages into the world, and are thinking about that, and thinking about their commitment, whether they are ready at doing something or already doing it anyways or not, doesn't matter. But it's just kind of a way for us to find this little bit of space that the water would find. And one of our messages, and so there's these kind of simple graphic designs, and then there's also usually like some words that go along with it. One of them is take and give more. And I think to me that's a really important message. It's like, it's okay, yes, we leave a footprint on this world and we are allowed to take from this world, but if everybody in this world just gave a little bit more than they're receiving, like that would be enough. We don't need to like give ourselves away, but just this little bit that we can give. If we all do that, I think the world will be better.
Hi, I'm Rachel Chalanese. I just wanted to share an invitation. I'm working with West Los Angeles College on April 18th, we're putting together a climate arts festival. And so we're offering free tabling to anyone that has an organization that they would like to get more awareness of to come and table with us. So I'll put contact info over there if anyone is interested.
I wanted to give a shout out to Sherry Rabinowitz and Kit Galloway, whose statement, "Artists need to create on the same scale that society has the capacity to destroy," was made. It was made originally referencing the nuclear threat and how the hyperobject of our satellites in space could be used to connect people rather than to destroy. So their work with the Electronic Cafe was to build a piercing in the veil that separates us through media. And they put in Venice, California, and in Moscow, an internet cafe together. It was the first of its kind, which allowed people to just communicate around a cup of coffee. So Meandros, as a concept, is about that simple idea of unpaving one parking spot at a time, just like that one coffee cup at a time. Not all ideas to be effective need to be gigantic. So a simple parking spot that's unpaved can replenish the aquifer, can allow pollinators access through the city, can allow mysterious things to grow that encourage optimism in mysterious ways. But when I started Metabolic Studio, I also thought about artistic lineage that comes from Southern California, that comes actually, I think, through 18th Street. Jan, was Sherry Rabinowitz and Kit Galloway there? Yeah. As part of our Meandros network, and in the brevity that life is, how we as artists can break down the walls that capitalism puts up and realize that our ideas are like the water underneath the city. They're part of the commons of what makes our city great. So to quote Sherry and Kit, I would like to also acknowledge where this quote comes from and say that I've carried it forth in the best way that I can. It's now being appropriated by Fong Bui in New York around his curations. And I invite you all to consider how, in our own way, we as makers and creators and storytellers can feel collectively a part of everything we've heard, take the stories you've heard today, and pass it on. So thank you very much for coming.
Finally, since everyone's here, I do want to just announce we do have a gift for you, an offering when they're at the other site, so it's an incentive to go grab lunch and build community. And in the spirit of every small act counts, we're distributing little bags of Palisade Fire landslide soil here, imbued with all the beautiful fire followers that you witnessed at the end of our procession. So please take these little soil bags, distribute past that landslide, past that seed across our watershed, and let's create another city.